Marcus had always liked the smell of old metal. The faint, bitter scent of rust mixed with dust made him feel alive. It reminded him that even in the heart of a crowded, neon-lit trade planet, there were still secrets waiting to be discovered. The auctions were his favorite places. Not the flashy ones filled with traders showing off their wealth or diplomats haggling over rare technology, but the smaller, forgotten auctions in the side streets of the colony, where things had been discarded, overlooked, or simply unwanted. On this particular day, the auction hall buzzed with energy. Alien merchants with scaled arms and multi-eyed heads moved between human bidders, exchanging coins that clinked and devices that beeped. Marcus kept to the edges, waiting for something ordinary yet extraordinary to appear. His eyes scanned the rows of containers stacked like building blocks, each holding unknown objects. He had learned over the years that the containers no one noticed often held the most interesting things. He saw one at the far end, dusty and dented, with faded warning symbols. No one was paying attention to it. The auctioneer barely even looked at it as he rattled off numbers for more glamorous goods. A robotic pet that could paint, a small drone capable of lifting 20 kilograms, and a crate filled with glowing stones from a distant asteroid belt. Marcus, curious, stepped closer. The container had no markings other than the faded warnings, and it didn't seem valuable. But there was something about it, a quiet hum beneath the metal. He could almost feel it calling him. "Next lot," the auctioneer shouted, glancing at the container as if to dismiss it. "Lot 753, do I hear a bid?" Marcus raised his hand. His voice was calm but steady. 10 credits. The auctioneer paused, surprised. 10, is there anyone else bidding? Silence. Not a single hand went up. Marcus smirked. Sometimes curiosity came cheap. The auctioneer's eyes narrowed. "Well, 10 it is, going once, going twice, sold." Marcus felt a thrill. He had no idea what he had bought, but that was the point. He could carry it back to his workshop, pry it open, and uncover whatever secret it held. The crowd continued with more valuable lots, ignoring him entirely. He walked away, container in tow, feeling the weight of something unknown pressing against his curiosity. Back at his workshop, Marcus set the container down. It was heavier than he expected, metal cold under his fingers. He circled it, inspecting it carefully. The faded warnings were almost indecipherable, but he could make out a symbol that looked like a broken lock. He ran his hand over it, feeling the grooves and scratches. Whoever had owned this before had wanted to keep whatever was inside safe or locked away. He grabbed a crowbar and began prying open the lid. The metal resisted at first, groaning, then gave way with a loud crack. Dust burst into the air, coating Marcus's arms and clothes. He coughed, waving his hand to clear the haze, and then he heard it. A high-pitched, shrill scream echoed from inside the container. Marcus froze. It was not mechanical, not electronic. It was alive. The lid rattled as something moved inside. Marcus instinctively stepped back. The container shook violently. A claw or maybe a hand shot out, grasping the edge. Then a figure emerged. It was a girl. At least she looked like a girl, but she was unlike any human Marcus had ever seen. Her skin glimmered faintly in the dim light, shifting colors like oil on water. Her eyes were huge, glowing with a soft, golden light that seemed to see straight through him. Her hair floated as if underwater, moving with her every motion. She landed on the floor with incredible agility, crouching low like a predator ready to spring. Marcus took a step back, holding the crowbar in front of him. Hey, it's okay," he said, trying to calm both himself and her. She hissed, a sound that was almost human but sharper, more urgent. She darted toward him and then spun away at the last second, knocking over a metal shelf. Tools clattered to the floor and sparks flew from an exposed wire. Marcus dodged, feeling his heart hammer in his chest. "Whoa, easy," he shouted. He had dealt with dangerous tech and rogue robots before, but nothing like this. This was alive, unpredictable, and terrifyingly intelligent. The girl, he decided to call her that for now, paused for a moment. Her eyes flicked toward him, then to the broken shelf, then back to him. It was like she was assessing him, learning in an instant how to survive in this strange environment. Marcus realized she wasn't just scared, she was studying him. He took a deep breath and tried a different approach. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I just want to understand what you are." The girl tilted her head, watching. Her fingers, slender, delicate, tipped with tiny claws, tapped against the floor. She made a series of clicks and whistles. Marcus had no idea what it meant, but it sounded like a language, not one he could understand. Then suddenly she sprang again, this time climbing the walls like a spider. Marcus ducked just in time as she vaulted over a workbench. He realized he couldn't trap her with brute force. He needed to think like her, move like her, anticipate her instincts. He grabbed a small drone from the shelf and activated it. The drone hummed to life and hovered near the ceiling. The girl froze for a moment, staring at it. Marcus used the opportunity to step closer, speaking gently. "I don't want to fight, let's just calm down." To his surprise, she mimicked him. Slowly, cautiously, she stepped down from the wall, keeping her distance. She studied him with those glowing eyes, every muscle tense, ready to react. Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she could learn to trust him. For the next few hours, Marcus tried to understand her. He offered her food, something sweet from the local markets, but she sniffed it and recoiled. He tried simple gestures, pointing to objects, showing her tools, letting her explore under his watchful eye. She was intelligent beyond anything he had ever encountered. She solved problems instinctively, climbed obstacles, and reacted to his movements as if she were anticipating them before they happened. Marcus realized that the container she had been in was not just for storage, it was a prison. Whoever had put her there had wanted to suppress her abilities to keep her contained and controlled. But she was untamable, wild, brilliant, dangerous, and now she was free. Night fell over the colony, and Marcus knew he couldn't keep her in his workshop forever. The walls were too thin, neighbors would hear. Security drones patrolled the streets, and if they scanned the area, they would detect her immediately. He needed a plan. He started thinking fast. He could try to hide her here, but that would be temporary. He could try to sell her. No, that was dangerous and wrong. He needed to understand her, earn her trust, and keep her safe. And maybe, just maybe, he could learn something incredible from her in return. The girl, he thought of a name, Lyra, finally approached him. She tilted her head, then extended a hand. Marcus hesitated. He reached out slowly. Their fingers touched, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. Her skin was warm, soft, but with an undercurrent of energy that made Marcus pull back slightly. She hissed softly, then mimicked him again, tapping his hand lightly with hers. It was a start. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the dusty workshop windows, Marcus realized one thing. His life had changed forever. He didn't know what species Lyra was, where she had come from, or what powers she truly possessed. But he knew that humans had a unique strength, curiosity, adaptability, and the courage to face the unknown. And he was about to test every bit of it. Marcus decided to let Lyra explore the workshop freely. She leaped from shelf to shelf, examined gadgets, and even seemed to play with the drone. He watched, fascinated, and tried to memorize every movement she made. She was learning, and he needed to learn from her too. Then he heard a faint sound outside, voices, distant but approaching. The colony was waking up. People would be out soon, and no one could know about Lyra. Marcus's mind raced. He needed to move quickly, find a temporary hiding place, and figure out the next step. "Okay, Lyra," he said softly, kneeling on the floor. "We need to get you somewhere safe. Can you trust me?" She stared at him, eyes glowing brighter for a second. Then, as if understanding his words, she nodded slightly. Marcus felt a thrill of relief. It wasn't complete trust, not yet, but it was enough to act. He grabbed a backpack, carefully placing a few supplies inside, food, a small first aid kit, and tools. Lyra watched him, curious, mimicking some of his motions. He realized she was not just untamable, she was adaptive. Faster than he could predict, smarter than most humans. He needed to respect that or he would fail. By the time Marcus secured a small compartment at the back of his workshop to hide her temporarily, the city streets were beginning to fill with workers, traders, and automated drones. Marcus peered through the window. He felt a mixture of excitement and dread. Whoever had put Lyra in that container would come looking, and they would not be gentle, but Marcus smiled to himself. Humans had survived worse. Humans had faced impossible odds. And maybe, just maybe, they could protect the untamable alien girl and learn something the galaxy had never seen before. Lyra curled up in the compartment, still alert, still glowing faintly in the dim light. Marcus sat nearby, exhausted but exhilarated. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for certain. Life had just gotten infinitely more interesting. The container he bought on a whim had changed everything. And Marcus was ready. Marcus watched Lyra as she explored her small, temporary hiding spot. She moved with a grace that was almost impossible to mimic. leaping over small obstacles and curling into corners as if assessing every detail. Her eyes followed him, glowing faintly, reflecting a mix of curiosity and caution. Marcus had learned quickly. He couldn't rush her, couldn't force trust. He had to earn it. He gently placed a small bowl of synthetic fruit near her. She sniffed it carefully, tapping it with her clawed fingers, then tasted it. Her face scrunched up at the strange flavor, but she didn't recoil entirely. A small victory, he thought. Patience would be key. Hours passed. The colony outside was alive with activity, hover vehicles gliding over streets, drones scanning the markets, and traders calling out in multiple languages. Marcus could feel eyes on the workshop. Someone would notice the disturbance soon if he stayed here too long. He needed a plan. He set to work quietly, dismantling some old storage units in the back of the workshop. He rearranged them to create a hidden passage, a narrow tunnel that led out of the building and into the less populated alleyways. He tested it himself, crawling through the narrow opening. It was tight, claustrophobic, but it would keep Lyra out of sight. Lyra watched every movement. She tilted her head as he pushed a metal panel into place, blocking the tunnel. Then, almost playfully, she dashed into the tunnel and emerged on the other side, perfectly navigating the confined space. Marcus couldn't help but laugh. She was quick, smarter than he expected, and fiercely independent. He realized he needed to understand her better. Observing her movements, studying her reactions, it wasn't just curiosity. It was survival. Whoever had put her in that container had designed her to escape, to survive in hostile conditions. And now Marcus was the one responsible for keeping her safe. Night fell and the colony's streets became less crowded, but the risk remained. Marcus decided to take Lyra out slowly under the cover of darkness. He had to move fast before anyone noticed her. He led her through the narrow alleys, moving silently. She followed, keeping a careful distance at first, but gradually staying closer. She didn't speak, didn't try to communicate in any way he could understand, but her gestures were clear. She trusted him enough to follow for now. They reached the edge of the marketplace, where crates and abandoned vehicles provided natural cover. Marcus paused. "Okay," he whispered. "We need to get you somewhere safe, out of the colony at least for now." Lyra's eyes flared at the word safe, and for the first time Marcus thought he saw understanding in her gaze. She nodded, almost imperceptibly, and crouched low, ready to move again. They had barely taken a few steps when a patrol drone hovered overhead. Its scanner glowed red as it swept the area. Marcus grabbed Lyra, pulling her behind an abandoned cargo container. She hissed, struggling, but he held her steady. "Quiet," he whispered. The drone passed without noticing them. Marcus exhaled slowly, heart pounding. Lyra peeked around the container, watching the drone disappear. Then she tapped his arm lightly, almost in thanks. Marcus smiled, realizing she was learning from him faster than he expected. They moved deeper into the alleyways, avoiding the main streets. Marcus led her to an abandoned warehouse near the edge of the colony. It was dilapidated, but it would serve as a temporary refuge. He opened the door carefully, peering inside. Dust covered the floors and broken machinery lay scattered. It was perfect, unnoticed by the authorities, hidden from the public, and large enough for Lyra to move freely. Inside, Lyra explored immediately. She leaped onto a high ledge, balancing effortlessly. Marcus watched, fascinated. Her abilities were remarkable, more than just physical skill. She seemed to anticipate movement, calculating distances and angles with precision. Humans were clever, but she was a living equation, solving every challenge instinctively. Marcus set down a small light source, dim and unobtrusive, and a few supplies. He sat on the floor, watching her. "We need to figure out what's next," he said softly. "You can't stay here forever, and I can't keep you hidden for long." Lyra turned to him, tilting her head. Then she made a series of clicking sounds, almost like a rhythm. Marcus frowned. "I don't understand," he said, but she repeated it, slower this time, as if trying to teach him. Marcus considered it carefully. Maybe it was her way of communicating, a form of language he didn't know yet. He nodded, trying to respond with gestures instead of words. Hours passed. Marcus began to understand her small patterns, the way she tilted her head when curious, the way she mimicked gestures, the way she tested boundaries. He realized that patience and observation were as much weapons as strength or technology. Humans survived because they adapted, and he would need every bit of that adaptability now. Suddenly, the sound of engines outside caught his attention. Marcus froze. Lyra's ears, or what seemed like them, twitched. She crouched low, sensing danger. Marcus peeked through a broken window. A group of sleek vehicles moved through the streets below, scanning for life forms. These were no ordinary patrols. They were hunting for something specific. Something alive. Something not human. Marcus's heart sank. Whoever had put Lyra in that container was searching for her. They were precise, methodical, and probably dangerous. He knew he couldn't stay here any longer. "Lyra," he whispered, crouching beside her. She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "We need to leave." Now she made a soft noise, a mix between a hiss and a sigh, then followed him toward the back exit. Marcus led her through a narrow tunnel he had discovered earlier, one that connected the warehouse to an abandoned street. They moved quickly, silently, avoiding the search parties and drones. Marcus's mind raced, calculating every step. Every corner could hide them or expose them. As they moved, he thought about her abilities. She was fast, strong, and intelligent, but more importantly, she was learning. Faster than any human he knew. She could mimic movements, solve problems, and anticipate danger. That meant she could fight, but she also meant trouble if the wrong people caught up with them. They reached a section of the colony where the buildings were older, abandoned, and mostly forgotten. Marcus ducked into a narrow passageway, letting Lyra move ahead. She paused, then turned back, almost as if checking that he was still following. Marcus smiled faintly. Trust, however small, was forming between them. They had only taken a few steps when a shout rang out. "Stop them! There they are!" Marcus froze. Lyra reacted instantly, leaping onto a nearby rooftop. Marcus followed, pulling himself up with all his strength. Below, a group of hunters moved through the streets, scanning, shouting, and waving devices that emitted flashing lights. Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, but they were clever. And right now, that cleverness was their best weapon. He pointed toward a narrow beam spanning between two buildings. "Follow me," he whispered. Lyra understood immediately, crouching and leaping onto the beam with agility that made Marcus's jaw drop. He followed, balancing carefully, heart pounding. Behind them, the hunters paused, scanning for movement. Marcus realized they were tracking life signs, probably using sensors tuned to Lyra's unique physiology. That meant they had no idea about the humans hiding nearby, yet he needed to keep it that way. They reached another rooftop and paused, catching their breath. Marcus looked at Lyra. Her eyes were bright, alert, and full of energy. She tilted her head at him, mimicking a smile. Marcus chuckled softly, relieved. They were alive for now. "Good," he whispered. "We're not out of this yet, but we're smarter than them. Humans survive because we think, because we adapt, because we don't give up. Remember that." Lyra blinked, then made a series of soft clicks. Marcus nodded. Communication was slow, but progress was progress. They continued moving through the abandoned sections of the colony, avoiding the main streets, using alleys, shadows, and rooftops to stay hidden. Marcus felt a strange sense of pride. Humans had survived countless dangers, and he was about to prove it again. Hours later, they reached the outskirts of the colony. Marcus looked at the horizon. There was nothing but darkness and the faint glow of distant stars. This was their chance. They could disappear, regroup, and plan their next move. He crouched beside Lyra. "We made it this far," he said. "But the real challenge begins now. Whoever sent you, they're not going to give up, and we need to be ready." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the distant lights of the colony. Marcus felt a surge of determination. Humans had faced worse than alien hunters. They had survived impossible odds before. And with Lyra, untamable, intelligent, and strong, they had a chance to survive this too. For the first time since opening the container, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. The world was dangerous, unpredictable, and full of threats, but humans had something unique: curiosity, courage, and the ability to adapt, and he was ready to use all of it to protect the alien girl and face whatever came next. Night deepened. Marcus and Lyra moved silently through the shadows, leaving the colony behind. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing: together they were stronger than anyone expected. And the galaxy was about to learn that humans were not to be underestimated. Marcus and Lyra moved cautiously through the abandoned industrial zone at the edge of the colony. Broken machinery, rusted pipes, and collapsed buildings created a perfect maze for hiding, and Marcus used every shadow and corner to their advantage. Behind them, the lights of the hunters' vehicles glinted faintly, their scanners sweeping back and forth, searching relentlessly. Marcus knew they were not ordinary patrols. These hunters were professionals, precise and dangerous, and they would not stop until they captured Lyra. Lyra moved with fluid grace, leaping over rubble and sliding under low beams. Marcus followed, his own movements careful but less elegant. He marveled at her abilities, realizing she could see angles and distances he could not. Even in total darkness, she navigated effortlessly. Her instincts were razor-sharp. Marcus felt a strange mix of awe and anxiety. The girl was untamable, unpredictable, and yet somehow he had begun to earn her trust. They reached a wide, open courtyard surrounded by abandoned factories. Marcus paused, catching his breath. He needed a plan. If the hunters were clever, they would predict the tunnels and alleys Marcus had been using. He couldn't outrun them forever. He had to think like them, anticipate their moves, and turn the environment to his advantage. "Lyra," he whispered, crouching beside her. She turned, glowing faintly in the dim light. "We're going to fight smart, not just with strength but with our heads. Can you do that?" She tilted her head, then clicked softly as if agreeing. Marcus smiled. That was all the confirmation he needed. He quickly scavenged materials from the surrounding area, rusted metal sheets, broken pipes, old wires, and crates. He set up simple traps, tripwires, obstacles, and noisemakers. Lyra watched, fascinated, occasionally mimicking his movements, her eyes bright with curiosity. Marcus realized that teaching her these small tactics might save them both. Humans had always survived because of their ingenuity, and now he would pass some of that ingenuity to her. The hunters appeared suddenly, moving in a tight formation. Marcus signaled to Lyra. She crouched low, blending with the shadows. The hunters' sensors glowed red as they scanned the courtyard, their footsteps precise and synchronized. Marcus held his breath. The first trap triggered. A wire snapped, releasing a cascade of metal debris. The hunters reacted immediately, but Marcus and Lyra had planned for it. The debris blocked their path, forcing them to divert. Lyra sprang from the shadows, hitting one of the hunters with a calculated leap, knocking him off balance. Marcus followed, using a heavy pipe to create a barrier between them and the approaching hunters. The hunters regrouped, their scanners red and angry. Marcus realized they were equipped with devices that could detect Lyra's unique physiology. That meant any mistake could reveal her location instantly. He needed to keep moving, keep creating distractions, and buy time. Lyra leapt onto a high ledge, surveying the battlefield. Marcus noticed she wasn't just reacting. She was calculating, predicting the hunters' movements. He signaled for her to drop a crate, which she did with precision, creating a loud crash. The hunters paused, confused, giving Marcus just enough time to sprint toward a narrow alley. Lyra followed, gliding down a pipe and landing silently behind him. They ran, weaving through the industrial zone, avoiding the main streets and using every shadow to their advantage. Marcus's mind raced. Humans had survived countless dangers because they adapted, and he was applying that lesson now, moment by moment. Every obstacle was an opportunity, every mistake a potential disaster. They reached a building with a collapsed roof and ducked inside. Marcus listened carefully. The hunters were close, their footsteps echoing faintly. Lyra crouched beside him, glowing eyes scanning the entrance. Marcus realized she could interface with technology in ways he didn't understand. She tapped a small control panel on the wall, causing a series of lights to flash and alarms to sound in a different part of the industrial zone. The hunters paused, distracted by the signals. Marcus grinned. Humans were clever, but with Lyra's abilities, they were unstoppable. The hunters adjusted quickly, splitting into smaller teams to cover more ground. Marcus knew this was their chance. He whispered to Lyra, "We need to create a path out. Follow me exactly. Don't stop and don't hesitate." She nodded, eyes bright and focused. They moved through a series of tunnels, Lyra navigating instinctively. Marcus was impressed by how fast she adapted to the environment. Her reflexes were lightning quick, her decisions precise. He realized she wasn't just a wild creature. She was a partner, capable of understanding tactics and improvising on the fly. They reached a large, open area with stacked crates and abandoned machinery. Marcus set a small trap, a pile of loose metal that would create noise if disturbed. He signaled Lyra to climb to a high ledge. She did so effortlessly, crouching silently. When the hunters entered the area, they triggered the trap. Metal clattered loudly, drawing their attention. Lyra leapt from above, using her strength to knock a hunter into the pile of crates. Marcus followed, creating a barrier between them and the remaining hunters. The hunters regrouped again, clearly frustrated. Marcus knew they couldn't stay in one place for long. He grabbed Lyra's hand. "We move now," he said. She followed without hesitation. Together, they sprinted toward the edge of the industrial zone, using every trick they had learned in the past few hours. As they ran, Marcus realized something remarkable. Lyra wasn't just following him, she was learning from him. She adjusted her movements based on his instructions, anticipating dangers and even creating her own distractions. Humans survived because of adaptability, but now with Lyra, that adaptability was amplified. They reached an old freight yard, partially covered with debris and forgotten vehicles. Marcus scanned the area. It was risky but necessary. He needed to find a temporary hiding place where the hunters wouldn't follow. He spotted an abandoned cargo ship, its doors slightly ajar. "There," he whispered. "We can hide inside for now." Lyra approached cautiously, sniffing the air. Marcus led the way inside, checking for traps or alarms. The interior was dark and dusty, but it would serve as a temporary refuge. Lyra explored immediately, leaping onto ledges and crawling through narrow spaces. Marcus watched, fascinated. Her abilities were extraordinary, and she was learning at an incredible rate. Marcus set up a small camp inside the ship, using crates and tarps to create a makeshift shelter. He offered her food again, this time a small packet of synthetic protein, but she hesitated. Slowly, she accepted it, nibbling carefully. Marcus smiled. Trust was forming, small but significant. As they rested, Marcus considered their situation. The hunters were relentless, and they would not stop. Whoever had sent them would have resources, technology, and intelligence far beyond what he could imagine. But humans had always survived against impossible odds. Marcus had faced rogue AI, space pirates, and dangerous alien fauna before. And now he had Lyra, an untamable, brilliant alien partner. Hours passed. Marcus and Lyra remained hidden, listening to the distant sounds of the colony. The hunters were searching methodically, but the freight yard provided enough cover to keep them safe for now. Marcus realized they needed a plan beyond running. They needed information, a strategy, and a way to turn the tables. Lyra approached him, making a series of soft clicks. Marcus interpreted it as curiosity. "I know," he whispered. "We need to understand who's after you and why. And then we'll make them regret chasing us." She tilted her head, then tapped his hand lightly, as if agreeing. Marcus smiled faintly. Humans had always faced the unknown, and they survived through courage, creativity, and adaptability. With Lyra by his side, their chances of surviving this threat and learning the truth had just increased exponentially. Night deepened. Marcus and Lyra remained inside the cargo ship, resting but alert. Outside, the sounds of search drones and distant shouts echoed faintly. Marcus knew the hunters would return, perhaps stronger, better prepared. But he also knew something important. Humans were never truly defeated when they used their minds, their courage, and their ability to adapt. Lyra curled up beside him, her body glowing faintly in the darkness. Marcus watched her, feeling a mixture of awe and responsibility. She was untamable, unpredictable, and incredibly powerful, and now she was counting on him. He couldn't fail her, not now, not ever. As dawn approached, Marcus prepared for the next move. They couldn't stay hidden forever, but they could plan, adapt, and survive. The hunters were formidable, but humans had survived worse. And together, Marcus and Lyra were stronger than anyone expected. He looked at her, determination blazing in his eyes. "We're not just running anymore," he whispered. "We're going to fight smart, and we're going to survive." Lyra tilted her head, then clicked softly. Marcus smiled. It wasn't just survival. They were forming a bond, a partnership that could defy even the most dangerous enemies. The galaxy was vast, filled with threats, mysteries, and wonders. But Marcus realized something crucial. Humans had something the hunters didn't fully understand. Creativity, courage, and adaptability. And with Lyra, untamable and brilliant, those traits would be unstoppable. Together, they would face whatever came next. The hunters, the secrets of the container, and the unknown forces that sent her into this world. They would confront all of it, and they would endure. Humans had always endured. And Marcus and Lyra would prove that once again. Marcus and Lyra rested briefly in the cargo ship, watching the pale light of dawn creep across the horizon. The colony behind them was waking, unaware of the chaos that had unfolded the night before. Marcus knew they couldn't stay here long. The hunters would regroup, and the signals Lyra had unknowingly left in the industrial zone would guide them back. They had to move, and fast. He crouched beside her, whispering softly. We need to leave the planet. Out of reach of the hunters, and then we find out who put you in that container and why." Lyra tilted her head, glowing faintly, and extended a small hand. Marcus took it gently, and they slipped out the back of the ship, using a narrow service tunnel that led to the outskirts of the spaceport. The streets were quiet, deserted, and filled with shadows. Marcus led her carefully, every sense alert. The hunters could be anywhere, but he had learned from past experiences that patience, observation, and clever thinking could outmatch strength. They reached an old docking bay where abandoned ships were left to rust. Marcus scanned the area. One vessel stood out, a small cargo shuttle, its hull battered but functional. He remembered the keys he had found in the container with Lyra, labeled with strange alien symbols. He pressed a few buttons, and the shuttle's systems flickered to life. Lyra watched with intense curiosity, moving around the controls with delicate, precise touches. Marcus realized she could interface with technology instinctively, understanding mechanisms faster than any human could. They climbed aboard. Marcus activated the shields and started the engines. The shuttle shuddered, then lifted slowly off the ground. Lyra leaned over the control panel, her eyes glowing as she observed every reading. Marcus felt a surge of hope. For the first time, they were not running blindly. They were moving with purpose, preparing to confront whatever lay ahead. As they reached the outskirts of the atmosphere, Marcus thought about the container. Whoever had sent it must have known she could survive extreme conditions, adapt, and escape. That meant the organization behind it was powerful, advanced, and dangerous. But humans had faced such odds before and survived. Marcus believed they could do it again. Suddenly, the shuttle's sensors detected approaching vessels. Marcus swore under his breath. "Hunters," he said grimly. Lyra's eyes flared and she tapped the console. Small energy pulses ran through the ship, diverting power to the shields and activating defensive countermeasures. Marcus realized she wasn't just helping, she was taking initiative, thinking strategically. The hunters fired. Laser beams sliced through the atmosphere, narrowly missing the shuttle. Marcus maneuvered sharply, weaving through debris and avoiding direct hits. Lyra guided him toward a small asteroid field nearby, calculating angles and trajectories faster than he could. Together they moved like a single unit, human creativity and alien instinct combined. They disappeared into the shadows of the asteroids. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Good thinking," he said. Lyra clicked softly, acknowledging the praise. It was remarkable. Trust had formed between them. She wasn't just an untamable alien. She was an ally, a partner, and together they could survive almost anything. Hours later, they found a secluded asteroid station, long abandoned and perfect for laying low. Marcus guided the shuttle into a docking bay and powered it down. Inside, Lyra explored, leaping from platforms and examining machinery. Marcus realized they had a rare opportunity, not just to hide, but to plan, study, and prepare. He activated the data pad he had found in the container. Lines of encrypted code scrolled across the screen. Marcus's heart raced. Whoever had sent Lyra in that container had left traces, information about her species, their abilities, and the purpose of their experiment. He realized the container had not been a random shipment. It had been designed to suppress her powers, control her, and test human response. Lyra watched silently, her eyes glowing softly. Marcus explained slowly, carefully. "They wanted to control you, use you, study you. But we're going to stop that. We're going to turn this around." She tilted her head, then placed a hand over the console, scanning the information with an intensity that startled Marcus. She was learning faster than he had imagined, comprehending concepts he had barely understood himself. Humans survived because they adapted, and Lyra had adapted faster than most humans ever could. Marcus and Lyra spent the next few days preparing. They rigged defensive systems, reinforced the shuttle, and devised escape plans. Every scenario was considered. Attacks from hunters, surveillance drones, and even rival alien factions that might learn of Lyra's abilities. Marcus realized that while humans might not be the strongest, they were relentless, creative, and courageous. Those traits, combined with Lyra's unique skills, made them almost unstoppable. Finally, the moment came. Marcus detected a fleet approaching, the same hunters who had pursued them relentlessly. Lyra's eyes flared with determination. Marcus activated the shuttle's stealth systems, but he knew it wouldn't hold forever. They needed a plan that was more than hiding. They needed to fight smart. Marcus took a deep breath. "We're not running anymore," he whispered. "We're going to make them regret chasing us." Lyra clicked softly, almost in agreement. Marcus maneuvered the shuttle toward a narrow asteroid corridor. The hunters followed, assuming they could trap them easily. But Marcus had prepared traps, debris fields, electromagnetic pulses, and Lyra's improvisational tech abilities. As the hunters approached, they were caught in a series of calculated obstacles. One ship collided with a floating asteroid, another was disabled by a cleverly timed pulse from Lyra. The remaining hunters pursued aggressively. Marcus guided the shuttle with precision, using every maneuver he had ever learned. Lyra anticipated their movements, deploying countermeasures, distracting sensors, and striking with precise, non-lethal energy blasts that disabled their systems. Together, human ingenuity and alien instinct created a perfect combination. Finally, they reached a safe distance. Marcus exhaled, exhausted but exhilarated. Lyra floated beside him, glowing softly, her body relaxed for the first time in days. Marcus realized something important. Humans survived because they didn't give up. They adapted. They used creativity, courage, and teamwork to overcome threats far greater than themselves. And now, with Lyra by his side, that survival instinct was amplified. Marcus reviewed the data from the container again. It revealed the true purpose of the alien agency behind Lyra's capture. They had experimented on multiple species, testing abilities, suppressing free will, and using humans as unintended subjects in a complex social experiment. Marcus felt a surge of anger. These were not just hunters. They were scientists who underestimated the resilience, creativity, and empathy of humans. Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes reflecting understanding. Marcus realized she recognized the danger, but also recognized that he was human, and that humans had something the hunters could not predict: courage, adaptability, and the ability to fight smart. He activated the shuttle's long-range communications. "We need to find allies," he said. "We can't face this alone forever." Lyra tapped the interface, accessing signals beyond his understanding, analyzing frequencies, and identifying potential safe zones. Together, they located a hidden human research outpost in a nearby star system, a place far from the hunters' reach. Marcus prepared the shuttle for the jump. He glanced at Lyra. "Ready?" he asked. She tilted her head and clicked softly, moving to her seat. Marcus initiated the jump sequence. The stars stretched and blurred as they slipped into faster-than-light travel. During the journey, Marcus thought about what they had endured. The container had been a trap, designed to suppress and control, but human ingenuity and Lyra's untamable abilities had turned the situation around. They had escaped, survived, and learned more about the universe, and themselves, than most humans ever could. Lyra leaned back, eyes closed briefly, and Marcus felt a sense of pride. They had become a team. Human and alien, different species, different abilities, but united by trust, courage, and the will to survive. As the shuttle approached the hidden outpost, Marcus prepared for landing. He knew new challenges awaited, understanding the agency's motives, finding safe shelter for Lyra, and deciding what to do next. But he also knew something crucial: humans were never powerless. They adapted, learned, and survived. And with Lyra, untamable, brilliant, and fiercely intelligent, that survival was unstoppable. The shuttle touched down gently on the outpost platform. Marcus guided Lyra out, watching her step confidently onto solid ground. She looked around, glowing softly in the dim lights of the station. Marcus felt a surge of hope. The galaxy was vast and full of danger, but humans had something no hunter, no alien agency, and no experiment could replicate: ingenuity, courage, and heart. Marcus smiled at her. "We're safe for now," he said, "but the fight isn't over, not yet." Lyra clicked softly, tilting her head, and then moved closer to him. Marcus realized that trust, once earned, could become a powerful weapon. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever, resilient, and brave. And now, humans and Lyra were ready to face whatever came next together. He looked up at the stars beyond the outpost. The universe was full of secrets, dangers, and wonders. But for the first time since opening that mysterious container, Marcus felt confident. Humans had faced the unknown before, and they would face it again. With Lyra at his side, untamable and brilliant, Marcus knew they could survive anything. The galaxy had underestimated them once. They would not make that mistake again.